The world of Mario is filled with all kinds of obstacles. Most of them were placed by Bowser to take out our beloved Italian. However, there are also some enemies that act as obstacles, like the Fuzzies, who have been around for ages. But how did it evolve over the years in terms of use, design, gameplay, and story? The Fuzzies are small, black-furred, parasitic creatures capable of sucking away enemies' health with a bite. Despite displaying some level of intelligence and the ability to speak, they are, for the most part, wild and uncivilized beings. They have the ability to secrete webbing-like strands from their bodies, though this ability has been largely phased out in modern times. Now, the Fuzzies were first seen in Super Mario World, the last 2D game with Mario in it, before the wave of 3D games like Super Mario 64 and Sunshine. In this game, they're particularly rare enemies that cannot be defeated, found circling blocks or the wire-like constructs floating in mid-air. Because of this, they do not directly attack Mario or Luigi, and only do damage if you get in their way. So when it comes down to it, they're extremely passive enemies, and also quite linear in their behavior since they just circle around or follow a line. They're extremely simplistic. The thing that makes them a pain and a danger for the player is their placement. And that's where you find most of the creativity. The levels are designed around the Fuzzies and not the other way around because of the enemy's behavior. They can't interact a whole lot with the level after all. The ones circling around blocks can be defeated either by Yoshi or by tossing a Koopa shell at them. And you can even jump on them if you have your faithful companion. These enemies are mostly used as a platforming obstacle, since the Super Mario World games had a lot of platforms running on wires. And by the looks of it, Nintendo didn't really care about them, since they're among the few enemies not shown during the game's end credits. Besides that, they disappeared together with the Koopalings and some other enemies for years because of the 3D era. But they were seen in the Yoshi's Island game, where Mario is actually a side character, and here, they're extremely different compared to the previous game. They're a floating, furry, spore-like creature, and when Yoshi makes contact or eats one of them, he gets dizzy and the whole level is affected. While in this state, Yoshi may have a hard time walking and aiming eggs, and it will be especially difficult to understand the map well, as the whole background will flash rainbow colors, move, and twist around. They also have their own level named after them called Touch Fuzzy Get Dizzy, which is also the first level to feature them. They always appear in large groups and hover all over the field, and you need to dodge them. Because of the weird effect that they have on Yoshi, you need to avoid them, or platforming will become a lot harder. So their goal here changed a lot, and they became a lot less predictable and linear, because they also move around on their own now. Besides that, they're not there anymore to deal damage, but actually to increase difficulty with a special effect. Their entire behavior and goal did a complete 180 out of nowhere, and I have no idea why they did this. I know that the Yoshi games are overall completely different from the Super Mario games, and they tend to make more weird and exotic enemies, and I think this is an example of it. After this, Nintendo started releasing the 3D games, and of course, the Fuzzies weren't seen there. They were even absent from New Super Mario Bros., and finally returned when the Wii game of the series was released, and they were similar to their Super Mario World version. Here they appear along with a bigger version called the Big Fuzzies. There isn't a huge difference between the two, since it's mostly a size thing. And yet again, neither of which are named in the Prima Games guidebook, which is a bit odd. However, unlike the previous version, they can be defeated by being frozen and shattering the block of ice they're trapped in, or blasting them with fireballs as Fire Mario. Just like in the older games, they can be found on wires and are mostly in sky levels. However, this time around, they are usually found in big groups, and they also do flips when they jump from one wire onto another. These small changes actually have a huge impact on the level design and how you interact with it all. You can create blocks out of them that move along the wire if you have the ice power, creating more platforming freedom. The jumping they do between lines also creates a less predictable pattern, and the same goes for the different sizes. Clearly, they wanted to give the player more freedom to use this enemy as a tool and to make it less linear and simple. In Super Mario World, it was extremely basic after all, and now they're finally getting rid of this and start to explore possibilities. After this, they even started appearing in 3D games since they were seen in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Now, as many of you know, going from 2D to 3D is not that easy. Just ask our friend Sonic the Hedgehog over here. However, when it comes to this enemy, it was surprisingly easy actually, since their tactics can be used in a lot of different scenarios. They first appear in Honeybloom Galaxy, moving up and down the orange poles that Mario or Luigi can climb. Fuzzies are also found in the Flipsville Galaxy, where they can be defeated with a spin drill. They look very similar to how they did in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, though they leave behind black smoke clouds as they move. Now instead of wires, it's poles this time, since you need to use those to get higher up, forcing the player to interact with them. Quite an easy solution, however, by the looks of it, they tried to put them in a 3D game before in the first Galaxy game. There's an enemy in that game that behaves a lot like the Fuzzies by latching onto characters and draining their HP, known as the Slurpless. And they also appear in Super Mario Galaxy together with the Fuzzies. Now, we aren't sure if these are related in any way, but it looks like they have been experimenting with similar creatures before. Now, after this, they were seen in both 2D and 3D games. However, not a lot changed. They mostly used the same mechanics, but in different scenarios. For example, in Super Mario 3D Land, where Mario must avoid them by walking on tight ropes. They only really changed in the two most recent games, Super Mario 3D World and Odyssey. Let's start with the Wii U game. In this game, they have the ability to move without the aid of a line. They are generally found in Shadowplay Alley and move through and around clear pipes. This gives the developers a lot more freedom, since they can now use them everywhere, making a lot possible. And besides that, there are also two new variations. Some sort of. Let's first look at the Fuzzy Horde. This is the main enemy of the Fuzzy Time Mine and Floating Fuzzy Time Mine, in which the player must run from them. It starts small, but as the level goes on, it grows much larger, and if you touch them, you will instantly lose a life. So they can use the Fuzzies as an unstoppable force that pressures you to complete the level as fast as you can. It's a bit like some of the Bowser fights, where he chases you and the only thing you have to do is dodge him and the other obstacles and be faster. A fun change of pace and something we have never really seen the Fuzzies do. Personally, I'm a fan of it. It makes the game less linear and variety of gameplay is almost always an improvement to a video game. The other variation they added was the Fuzzlers, which are caterpillar-like enemies and are predominantly seen in Switchboard Falls. They're essentially a cross between a Wiggler and a Fuzzy, which you can clearly see. They always appear on switchboard tracks and roll along the tracks in a set path. So essentially, they're the wider version. Now, just like the previous variation, they were only made for a specific effect or mechanic. And with this one, it's the switchboards. You can control and move these by standing on the arrows. However, the Fuzzlers are the obstacle that you need to dodge. Nintendo does this a ton in their Mario games. They come up with a certain mechanic, introduce it to the player, make it difficult and do some different things with them, and then dump it. This also happened with these two variations, and the levels were fun, so certainly a good addition to the Fuzzy family. Now after this, they were also seen in the new Super Mario Odyssey, however, not a lot changed. Only one small thing. They were seen in both 2D and 3D segments of the game, which is a mix we never even saw in the series. However, their behavior is the same as in the previous games really. It just changes when you switch between them. This is kind of where their role in the main series ended. However, throughout the years, they were also seen a lot in one specific spin-off game, Paper Mario. They are mostly seen as enemies, however variations like the Fuzzy Horde originally came from these games and ended up in the main series. So clearly the Paper Mario spin-off games had an effect on the series overall when it comes to the Fuzzies. And that's kind of where it ends for them. They had quite a big role and were actually seen in a surprising amount of games. In the end, they even became a lot better enemies and they were used in a lot more interesting scenarios than you would expect. Let's just hope that they don't fade away for years and years again. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, click the annotations on the screen right now. And be sure to subscribe and click the little bell so you won't miss anything. Besides that, I have Snapchat nowadays, WileyYT. Besides that, I also have Twitter, I have Instagram, I have Twitch. Go check that out. What are you doing here still? Click on the thingies. Go! Come on, you can do it. I believe in you.